do you get asked about Ta-Nehisi Coates and all these? Do you want to go there? Is that
I am. We can talk about it, sure.
Well, so I stumbled there. You have a long, it seems like you have kind of a 10-year long polite beef going on or something. Is that fair accurate to say?
Yes.
But I stumbled across this because you wrote a book about rap music called All About the Beat in the aughts. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a review of the book and started with a line about being polite to the people you disagree with. So can you summarize what it is you two disagree about?
I don't think about him much anymore, but yeah, he and I don't like each other, and he started it, and it was around that time. All About the Beat was my worst book. I unabashedly say I didn't really want to write it. It never went into paperback. It was an utter and complete failure. But when it came out, it was me writing a book about something that people had no reason to think I knew anything about. I knew more than people thought. Ta-Nehisi thought, here's this square, I think Ta-Nehisi thought I was a Republican, and he's this bad Black person, and he's going to be writing about this music that I like so much. And I remember he wrote one, I shouldn't admit that I remember after all this time, but I remember around that time he wrote something along the lines of, I haven't read this book yet, but John McWhorter is a bully if he's writing. And I don't think he knew that the book wasn't criticizing the music, but he just assumed that I was writing this pull your pants up book. So yeah, that was what the disagreement was about. And we did a blogging heads talk where we learned nothing whatsoever from one another. And here we are today. He and I don't snipe the way we used to, but yeah, there were some issues, definitely.
Yeah, I got to tell you, before reading your book and preparing for this talk, I'd never heard of, which I shouldn't admit it maybe because it makes me sound uncool or something, but I never heard of blogging heads. And I stumbled across it because of this talk, and I watched a little bit of the Glenn show with you and Glenn Lowry, and interesting, pretty great stuff. So people should check that out too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So okay. So back to let's see here. Back to the beef with Coates here. I won't bother quoting you.
I know what one you're going to use.
I think, let's see. So I think I'm meaning to use this as an entry point to discuss what you're working on now, because you're working on a book that you've been calling The Elect, but I guess it's the same book that is being published by Penguin later this year, and it's now called Woke Racism.
That's been announced this week. That's right.
Oh, that was announced this week.
Mm-hmm.
How a new religion has betrayed Black America. So can you tell us about the book?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with Ta-Nehisi Coates in particular, but that book is going to be about how our new racial reckoning often results in policy proposals and also just cultural attitudes that I think hurt Black people. That's what it's about. So it's not that I don't like woke. I think of myself as pretty woke. I don't like woke people who are mean. And I am seeing a prosecutorial culture that tells us that we're supposed to back things up that I think keep Black people behind and condescend to Black people. And I don't mean me, I mean Black people in general. And so I thought I wanted to have my say about that. And I think that there is a kind of a religious way of looking at things that, now that you remind me, a lot of it coalesced around Ta-Nehisi Coates in about 2014. I don't think he was trying to whip it up. He, I think, has moved on to other things and kind of doesn't want to be bothered. But it did all start with people kind of treating him as a guru. And now it's other people who are the gurus, but I really am disturbed by what I've seen. And so I just wrote a statement from a Black person saying that, do you realize how harmful to Black people a lot of these things are? And so that means 2 books in a year. I don't know why I did that to myself, but Woke Racism is coming out around Halloween. And if we're going to name names, Ta-Nehisi probably comes up in it 3 times. Robin DiAngelo and Ibram Kendi up in it a lot more times because this is a book written about 2020 and 2021. And yeah, it's a constructive book. I don't want to spend a book yelling and screaming, but I'm really worried about a lot of stuff that's been happening. And that book is the cranky race commentator me. So 9 Nasty Words is designed to make you smile. Woke racism is designed to make you angry. And so that it's the two sides of me, whatever those are.
Sounds like another potential bestseller, I would say.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So something I've noticed that you've probably noticed too, and I'm like not speaking from an expert, point of view at all on this. I'm like a dorky fiction reader guy, so I barely even venture into nonfiction. But something I've noticed, and I'm wondering what you think about it. Are white people allowed to agree with your criticisms of the hyper woke and the elect? It strikes me that when you disagree with, say, like a Ta-Nehisi Coates, to bring him up again, poor guy, that a certain segment of society is inclined to really enthusiastically agree with you, because that same segment of society also disagrees with Ta-Nehisi Coates, though maybe more vehemently than you do, and maybe for reasons that are way, way, way less nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is, does that make you skeptical? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that my point is not, oh, let's stop this wokeness. I'm not quite yet, the old man shaking his fist saying, get off my lawn. My point is stop hurting Black people. And so if a white person worries whether they should agree with me, they worry that they're racist to agree with me, it'd be an odd conclusion, because what I'm saying is, in a way, you're a racist if you agree with the other people. I'm trying to get that view out there. And so woke racism is not written for people, I hate to say this because I'm not trying to dehumanize, but it's not written for card-carrying Republican conservatives who watch Fox News. They already don't like the woke stuff. A lot of them see what's wrong with it already. They're convinced. I'm writing to people sitting on the fence who are compelled by a lot of this anti-racist rhetoric, because who's against, anti-racism, but who can see that in practice, a lot of it ends up making Black people look delicate, stupid, and numb to nuance, not to mention behind, especially in school. And their whole issues about race and the cops. Well, and I want people to see you don't have to go for this particular strain of wokeness in order to be a good person. That's what woke racism is about. And it's also about what the Black community really needs. And it lists it. There's a chapter about it. So it's not just, I hate reading articles by certain people. It's about, this is what we need to do. So it's an attempt to be constructive in the conversation, and we'll see how it goes.
So just we don't have to dwell on this forever, but to clear it up for me. So the way that anti-racism hurts Black people, in your view, is that it turns them into victims, kind of thing. But you're not.
Oh no, nothing that abstract. No.
Okay,
if you get behind a defund the police issue, you're telling people in actual Black communities something that they don't want. If you tell people that it's white to be precise and to be on time and to be objective and to like math, which is being said explicitly in many school districts across the country, you are condemning Black students to scholastic failure while being told that you are engaging in some kind of anti-racism. It's that kind of, it's not just, I don't wish to be thought of as a victim. That book has been written 400 times. It's about holding Black people back. That's what worries me.
Okay. But you said there are some, there are some policy things that you're in favor of, but
yeah, there are things that need to be done. Just not this stuff that a lot of people are saying needs to be done. We've just
maybe not defund the police, but maybe, I don't know,
reform the police
or something.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So I want to ask one more question about this, and then I'll stop making you uncomfortable here.
Okay.
But so the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's murder was 2 days ago. It was May 25th. I watched I told you I watched a little bit of the Glenn show. I watched an episode of the Glenn show from about a year ago, where you and he talk about the George Floyd thing kind of right after it happened. And and your view on it at that time, which may or may not still be your view on it today, was kind of that it wasn't necessarily about race, but more about socioeconomic injustice kind of thing. So what I'm wondering is, did your views on that change over the last year? Have you thought a lot about it over the last year? And you know, do you think that police reform is important? I guess, but I think we talked a little bit about that. So.
No, my views have gotten stronger about that because if I remember the episode that you're talking about, I said, well, for example, you really kind of feel like this is something that wouldn't have happened to a white person. And I just put the question out there, has that ever happened to a white person? And I put it out as a genuine question. And instantly, because of the reach of social media, I learned that there was a white George Floyd. Just 4 years ago, his name was Tony Timpa. He was killed in the exact same way, and it was recorded. Nobody ever heard about Tony Timpa. I have since heard from Tony Timpa's family. They are very upset that George Floyd gets all of this attention, but when the same thing happened to their son because he's white, it didn't matter. And if you really look at the statistics, what you see is that we have a really effed up cop culture, without a doubt. The cops murder way too many people, but it's not about race in the way that looks so intuitive. And I don't think we have time to talk about it, but even the fact that Black people are killed at a disproportionate rate based on our proportion within the population, even that still comes down to other things. The idea that the cops have a quicker trigger finger with murder on Black suspects, as counterintuitive as it seems, that's just not true. The facts just don't support it. And I really do believe that that's the case. My strategy, cop reform is tough and it's slow. I want to get Black people away from the cops is my strategy. I am very much behind getting rid of the war on drugs, for one thing, because a lot of those things, if it isn't the war on drugs specifically, it's two or three steps past the war on drugs. It's always the cops are in there looking for drugs. Somebody is suspected of having drugs on them, this sort of thing. That would cut so much of this practically in half, because I'm pretty cynical about how good you can get the cops to be. And, you know, despite Derek Chauvin's conviction, we've seen how easy it is for terrible things to happen, such as what happened, you know, for some reason named Brooklyn, Minnesota, where you have this poor guy, Dante Wright, who gets killed because the cop, you know, confuses her taser with her gun. Things like that make me think, let's just not have the cops and Black people meet so often. So I'm very concerned with the issue, but I do look at it differently than many people do.